Good afternoon and good morning, everyone. We are so happy that you joined us for this afternoon session. And my name is Suki Seckel. I'm the System of Care Lead with NTAC. And so I'm so glad that you're here. And so we'll get started in just a minute. And so I just wanted to quickly review a few items just in case this is your first session with us today or this week. And so, firstly, I just want to remind us that we'd like everyone to be aware of our commitment to maintaining a safe and accountable space. You can find the accountable space commitment on the homepage of our AirMeet platform. And if you experience any issues and need assistance, please reach out to me directly using a direct message, and you can find me under the people icon and chat me directly. To walk through the tools in this session, I'd like to draw your attention to the vertical bar featuring several icons on the right side of your screen. Many of you will want to access the slides for this session and other resources. You can find those in the icon that looks like a stack of paper. You can chat using the chat bubble icon. And then if you have any questions at all for our speakers today, please post those directly in the Q&A chat and upvote the questions that you would like answered so that we can navigate through all of the questions coming in. Also, if at any time during the session you need to step away or take a break, debrief, decompress, please take care of yourself during our sessions today. Please feel free to do so. And also, our wellness room is open. I checked it out earlier and I thought it was fantastic. So I encourage you all to step in there as you need to. And the wellness room, you can navigate to that at the very top of your event navigation bar. And so without further ado, I'm going to pass the mic to our speakers from the National Asian American Pacific Islander Mental Health Association, Elizabeth Sweet, Crystal Canari, and Ariel Montesur. Thank you so much for sharing your experience with us today.
Definitely. Thank you so much, Suki, for helping us moderate. And hello, everyone. My name is Crystal Canari, pronoun she, hers. Some folks are already doing it in the chat, but we'd love to just welcome everyone. Would love to know where folks are coming from. I'm zooming in from Fayetteville, Arkansas, and would love to know because it is both May, Mental Health Awareness Month, and Asian American, Native Hawaiian, Pacific Islander Heritage Month. Would love to know what folks are doing to celebrate. So let's go ahead and get the chat moving. We are excited to share with you what we are doing here at NAAPIMHA, and then also would love to just hear your stories. We know in Asian American, Native Hawaiian, Pacific Islander communities, storytelling is a cultural strength, and so would love to just learn more about you all in the chat as we go and run this workshop. And so again, my name is Crystal Canari. I'm checking in from Fayetteville, Arkansas, and I serve as Deputy Director of NAAPIMHA. And one thing I'm doing to celebrate AANHPI Heritage Month, as well as May Mental Health Awareness Month, is actually just taking some time to take care of myself. I know it's a busy month so being able to center just my rest and just be with nieces and nephews right now. And I'll pass it off to introduce themselves. I'll pass it off to Elizabeth to do the icebreaker.
Yeah, thank you so much, Crystal. Hello, everyone. My name is Elizabeth. I use she, they pronouns, and I'm calling in from Washington State, west of Seattle by a couple hours, out toward Forks, Washington, if anyone is familiar maybe with Twilight. And yeah, I think for myself, what I'm doing this month around thinking about Mental Health Awareness Month and AANHPI Heritage Month is really, despite the fact that I am located a little bit rurally, is taking a lot of time to find, like Asian artists and folks who are graphic designers, folks in performing arts, and really interact with their content online, really amplify that, yeah, art is such a cool medium for us to share our identities and stories, and also can bring just a lot of joy and healing as well. So that's something I'm focusing on. And so I am the community engagement manager at NAAPIMHA as well, and very excited to be here with you all today. So I'll pass it off now to Ariel to introduce herself and do the icebreaker as well.
Hello everyone, my name is Ariel Montesur. I am the project coordinator for NAAPIMHA. I'm actually calling in from Maryland, and what I'm doing for AAPI Heritage Month as well as Mental Health Awareness Month is along the same lines as Elizabeth, making sure to like uplift a lot of Asian artists anywhere on social media. And I am really happy to be here to present to all of you today. And
yeah. Thank you. So that is our team. You're going to see more of our team in a few slides. And just want to highlight, folks are coming in from all over the country, and ways that you all are celebrating are doing various events for children's mental health awareness, listening to even just the cicadas that are singing, again, being connected to things outside of ourselves. And some people are actually having celebrations in their communities, walks and having meals together with a band. So let's continue to celebrate this month with one another. And one way we're doing that is by taking part in this summit with you all. And we're really excited. We wanted to title this session AANHPIs in Focus, holding the heart work and connecting communities of care, because we are wanting to highlight to you all what we do at NAAPIMHA, the National AAPI Mental Health Association, and would love to just talk to you all about what you're doing in your communities to take care of your communities, particularly those that may identify as Asian American, Native Hawaiian, and Pacific Islander. And so before we get started, if we can go to the next slide, we do want to provide you all with a content warning. There will be things mentioned in our slides that do speak to having both messages of suicide, anti-Asian American, Native Hawaiian, Pacific Islander violence, gun violence, historical trauma, as well as genocide. So we just encourage you to do what you need to take care of self and honor your mental health by taking care of yourself, however and whenever it becomes necessary. And so we can go on to the next slide. Before I go into NAAPIMHA, wanted to pull up a poll. We're trying to have this be a bit more interactive throughout the session. So if we could pull up the first poll, we wanted to be able to just ask you all a quick trivia question. And the first poll, if we can pull it up, I'm not sure if it's showing up. Elizabeth, is it showing up for us?
I believe that should now be visible.
Okay. Awesome. So again, we are centering Asian American, Native Hawaiian, Pacific Islanders. And so our question to you all is, how many specific racial ethnic groups make up the AANHPI community? And if you all could go into your polling, we'll go ahead and see what folks say in the poll. So the choices are 40 plus subgroups, 50, 60, 70. How many do you all think there are within the AANHPI community? I'll give folks maybe another 10 seconds to vote. And feel free, Elizabeth is our tech guru today, so feel free, Elizabeth, to highlight those results as they become available. And yes, Suki says you can navigate to the poll by clicking on the icon with the 3 lines.
Yeah, thank you, Crystal. It looks like we have 20 votes in. I can close the poll, and it's designed to, I think, show results after it's closed, just to get a sense. 22, so we have a couple more folks just trickling in responses here. But at maybe 25, I'll close it and see where we're at in the room. Okay, how about we have some results?
Yeah, awesome. So let's see. So we have 25% of 20% of folks said 40 groups, 40%, so over almost over close to half say 50, 12% say 60, and then a quarter of you say 70. So drum roll, please. The answer is, Elizabeth, what's the answer?
There are, in fact, over 70 groups that make up the AANHPI community. 74, I believe, is kind of the widely recognized number, although I believe that that's a lot of times for recognized groups, and there might be additional as well. But yeah, that's over 70 and counting of folks, over 50 in the Asian American categorization, and then around 25 or so in the Pacific Islander, Native Hawaiian categorization. Yeah, our community is incredibly diverse, incredibly large, so many groups and cultures.
Yes, and one thing that we wanted to note before we go into our presentation is that Asian American, we're going to say AANHPI just because it is a long name. And so AANHPIs are the nation's fastest growing racial group. Again, there are close to 25 million Asian Americans and 1.6 million Native Hawaiian and Pacific Islanders living in the US, making up 7% of the population. And growing more than 4 times as rapidly as the US population, AANHPIs are expected to double again by nearly 36 million by 2060. So that said, we just wanted to note that AANHPIs are incredibly diverse. And because of that, we want to make sure that we don't assume that Asian American, Native Hawaiian, Pacific Islanders are a monolith. And without going into a full history lesson, these individuals and communities have come through different ways throughout the years. And so some came to the US in the mid-19th century seeking work as farmers or laborers, while others arrived in the late 20th century to escape war and conflicts. And even the idea of the Native Hawaiians in particular, they never arrived here. They have been here centuries before the establishment of the US. And some are still deeply scarred by the occupation of the US and its continued colonization. And so recognizing, again, the various histories of these communities and just making sure that we recognize their diversity and the importance of us understanding, not to just, as much as we roll us up into one group, there are so many nuanced experiences. So while we continue this conversation on AANHPI mental health, we keep this in mind and want to, again, uplift these incredible voices of various AANHPI communities and understand that their experiences and bettering those experiences helps us better support those organizations. So we can go to the, not yet. So that's just my little disclaimer. One thing that we want to first talk about is just our organization. The National Asian American Pacific Islander Mental Health Association was created at the turn of the century. It was created in 2000 as one of 4 multi-ethnic mental health associations serving ethnically diverse populations. So there was NAAPIMHA supporting the AAPI community. There was NALBA supporting the National Latino Behavioral Health Association, as well as organizations that supported the Black community, as well as tribal nations. And these were all organizations that were created through seed funding through the Department of Health and Human Services and SAMHSA. And so since then, since 2001, NAAPIMHA has transitioned into its own national nonprofit, working to support the holistic health and well-being of AANHPI communities. How we do that through mental health training, programs, and policy and advocacy, which we'll talk to you about today. And one thing that we're very proud of is that we are a community-driven organization with a national mental health focus on AANHPI communities. And we do that by spanning education, training, public health, as well as policy and advocacy. And one very important thing that we have always strive to do is center those with lived experience as we do this work. Next slide. And so that said, it is important for me to just honor that it is not just myself, Ariel, and Elizabeth that do this work, those that could not be with us today, but we are holding in spirit our team members as well as our community partners. So I wanted to share with you all our wonderful team that consists of our top members. The people at the top are our full-time staff, and then we have various members in the community that either act as mental health trainers in our communities, as well as people that exist on our NAAPIMHA committee, which is our committee of people with lived experience, or either lived experience or as somebody that supports somebody that has a lived mental health experience. Next slide. And then, like I mentioned, NAAPIMHA does not exist in a bubble. It really finds its strength in the power of the collective. And so we are very excited to just be able to work with various other AANHPI serving organizations and mental health associations across the country to be able to do the work that we do. So here are just a couple that are on the screen. And as of this past May, we just celebrated National AANHPI Mental Health Day. And we were able to have up to 120 community partners across the country that helped us celebrate that special day last week. And we'll go into that a bit more. And then finally, just to give you a perspective of what we do our work in 3 main buckets. Like I mentioned, we do culturally informed mental health trainings. So one training that we do, actually, I'm not going to go over it because our team is going to go over it, but we do culturally informed mental health trainings for the communities, both for providers that serve AANHPI communities, as well as community members that would just like to be able to learn how to talk to their loved ones around mental health, and sometimes not even the word mental health. They want to just talk to their loved ones about what they may be going through. Another thing that we do is mental health programs. So the difference between trainings and programs is that trainings are maybe an 8-hour or a day and a half day training that helps build people's skills, whereas programs are group ongoing mental health groups that that help support people in talking about mental health in their communities. So one group that we have is Friends Do Make a Difference, which is a youth mental health leadership program that we have run in various high schools and colleges across the country. Another group that we have that has virtual and in persons are our NAAPIMHA group. So that's the National AAPI Empowerment Work. That's our group of people with lived experience. And then we also do programs for various community organizations, employee resource groups, schools and businesses, and even conferences like today. We often make sure that we are linking up with other efforts that are doing the work to build our systems of care. Another bucket that we offer is our policy and advocacy work. So this is actually how NAAPIMHA was started, right? Working with the federal government, working with the White House Initiative on Asian Americans and Pacific Islanders. And so we work with many different coalitions to make sure that we are not only supporting the grassroots, but also uplifting their concerns to the grass tops. And so we'll talk a bit more about the various ways we're doing that shortly. And then the final bucket that is relatively new is our community crisis supports and response. We are a national mental health organization, but we from the get-go knew we were not a direct service organization. But unfortunately, given the amount of different community crises that have impacted our communities, whether that be shootings to wildfires to other disasters, NAAPIMHA has also worked alongside direct service organizations and communities on the ground to ensure that we are working to really support our communities during times of crises. And then another thing I want to note is, in addition to those more community-wide supports, we also have a deep commitment to suicide prevention and recovery in our communities because of the amount of people that die by suicide in our communities, like other communities. And so we wanted to also lift that as well. And we've been finding ways to work with different suicide prevention efforts like 988, as well as other suicide prevention trainings to bring that to our communities. So hopefully that was just a breadth of what we do. I'm going to go ahead and pass it off to Ariel to go more into our mental health trainings and the impact of those trainings over the years.
Thank you, Crystal. So in my role as project coordinator, I work a lot with the culturally informed mental health trainings that we offer at NAAPIMHA. So the first of these trainings that I will talk about today is the Achieving Whole Health training, which provides a creative, interactive, and culturally relevant way of improving both the physical and the mental health outcomes for AANHPI communities. It is adopted from evidence-based, peer-centered program, whole health action management, to include cultural considerations for our communities. Basically, in this training, they learned a lot about how you can improve the body, mind, and spirit. And in this training, paraprofessional staff and community members, they learn how to take an active role in improving their health in these aspects. And they're also able to learn ways to help others, to help their community as AWH wellness coaches. And to date, there have been 60 community-based organizations and more than 300 participants that have been trained in our trainings. And after the training is done, it is not over, because after they graduate, they are then linked to a national learning collaborative that helps foster ongoing peer support. And so in this learning collaborative, they will have monthly sessions where our instructors will meet with our participants, and we just basically have a conversation about how achieving whole health has helped their lives thus far. And the way to sign up for achieving health training is we will have them up on our websites, napima.org/training. So if you know someone that could benefit from an achieving health training, or if you yourself would want to participate in a training, you just have to check out our website and just find if there's a training available. And I personally have taken the Achieving Health training. I was actually a participant before I worked at NAAPIMHA, and I loved it. I highly recommend it. It really helped me to know how to improve my own health, like physically and both mentally, and just just learning how to take care of myself. And if you go to the next slide, there are many people who have the same opinion as me. Someone has said that it has re-energized their passion for mental health, which is really great to hear. And it has also gave people good insight on how to make strides to balancing their body, mind, and their spirit. It has helped them to learn the importance of decision making, goal setting, and accountability in helping achieve their healthy goals, and as well as recommending the training to others. And I just think that's wonderful. And then if we go to the next slide, we also have mental health first aid training. So mental health first aid is a nationally recognized evidence-based practice from the National Council for Mental Well-Being. And there are two types. There's youth mental health first aid training, as well as adult mental health first aid training. And NAAPIMHA offers both of these with cultural considerations for AANHPI communities. And if you don't know, if you've never experienced one, basically it will teach you how to help someone who is developing a mental health problem or is experiencing a mental health crisis. The trainings are 8 hours long. It can be either all in one day or it can be split up between 2 days. And participants do not need previous mental health or clinical experience to participate. They just have to be 18 years or older to participate in the training. And to date, there have been 100 people that have been trained by NAAPIMHA in mental health first aid, and we anticipate 300 new trainees in 2024. And similar to Achieving Whole Health, NAAPIMHA also has a learning collaborative that helps support mental health first aiders in their collective learning as mental health first aiders. And something I love about mental health first aid training is that we offer we offer open mental health first aid trainings as well as closed mental health first aid trainings. So if a AANHPI serving organization wants to work with us to have a training specific to their organization, they just have to request, and then we will work to make sure that it works with our schedule. And we will also work to include certain considerations that are specific to their community. So for example, if there's a Filipino serving organization that would like a mental health first aid training from the PIMA, we will make sure to include cultural considerations that are specific to the Filipino community. And so I also took mental health first aid training. I also recommend it. Oh yes, as Elizabeth just said in the chat, all of these trainings are free. And if we go to the next slide, so I already said I used to be a mental health first aid participant as well, and I recommend it. And a lot of people also recommend it. As you can see, the testimonials on the screen. So there is someone that was able to help a person access counseling services because of what they learned through mental health first aid training. And then another person, they were able to effectively communicate to family members, understanding the negative outcome of cultural stigma and ways to softly approach and assess the direction of conversation. And I found that very powerful because I know that in AANHPI communities, it is difficult to have these conversations about mental health because of the cultural stigma that surrounds it. And so to hear that mental health first aid training helped this person have this conversation, it's very like inspiring. And I think that is all for the culturally informed mental health trainings. And so I am now going to pass it off to Elizabeth to talk about our community programs that we offer at the PIMA.
Thank you so much, Ariel. And hi, folks. I'm back, and I'm here to talk a little bit about what we do in terms of community programs. And the first one that I want to like to mention is our Friends Do Make a Difference program, which is a youth mental health leadership program for AANHPI youth and young adults, folks in high school and college level. And really, our goal with this program is to foster emotionally healthy environments for AANHPI youth to really get in touch with and begin to have these conversations around mental health, to support their skills and being peers to others as for mental health support, and really emphasizing that ultimately like having this network of support and having friends really like does make a difference at the end of the day. I can say that I know, for example, that for AANHPI youth, suicide in recent years has been the leading cause of death for folks in kind of that, I believe it's like was it 16 to 24 like age bracket, despite the fact that for youth nationally, suicide is ranks a little bit lower in the causes of death. And so I think it's just very apparent that in our communities, our youth are struggling at times and do need this support. And so we're, very much aware of this and very much like to note that, yeah, there have been a number of folks that have done these cohorts, these Friends to Make a Difference cohorts with us, traditionally out of Denver, Colorado, which is where we had some capacity and staff, but we hope to continue to expand to other geographies so that youth everywhere will have this opportunity in the future. And really, just to note that, there's been a number of, kind of conferences that have also interfaced with youth in this program, as well as a number of, universities, high schools, and the like. And so I think the impact has just been really immense. If I go to the next slide here, I just have a couple on the slide of various, just folks in their own words who participated in this program, what it means to them to feel found, to feel like they have now a space to really feel safe, included, unpack some things around identity and mental health, and be around their peers. And I think to get connected to the wider AANHPI community at times for folks. And so, I think the idea of the Friends to Make a Difference program is really continuing to blossom around this idea of just letting youth have these conversations to break cultural stigmas and to very much just be connected with one another, because that's very powerful to have that youth voice there. And so I'll also be continuing with another program that Crystal mentioned earlier, which is the National Asian American Pacific Islander Empowerment Network, or NAAPIMHA. And what this is, it's a network of folks nationally that's bringing together AANHPIs who have lived mental health experience. And either that means they themselves as individuals have that experience, or they are impacted by it through friends or family or folks in their networks. And so really what NAAPIMHA does and what it is about connecting these people. There's over 150 folks who are currently part of the NAAPIMHA network, and you can go to our website, napima.org/NAAPIMHA, and if you would like to join, if you identify as someone who's AANHPI with lived experience. And basically the idea, the philosophy behind NAAPIMHA really revolves around this idea that AANHPI mental health is deeply marginalized. And for those of us with mental health challenges and disorders and things of that like, we really just share unique experiences, knowledge, and perspectives that inform mental health awareness, practice, and policy. And so how can we really amplify that lived experience voice, tear down stigma, and work toward this collective liberation amongst one another, to be just very candid about what we go through and our struggles and the like. And so a little bit about NAAPIMHA programming is that we've officially launched last year the NAAPIMHA membership network. And then also we have a steering committee, all folks with lived experience themselves, who play a really pivotal role of being speakers and workshop facilitators. And we had a summit last year that was redefining mental health, centering voices of AANHPI youth and people with lived experience. And as well, we really think about how the steering committee has helped to really spearhead specific initiatives, such as special interest groups for folks in the NAAPIMHA network. So those include healing through the arts, mental health professionals with lived experience, or folks who are parents with lived experience, to have those conversations as they relate to specific identities and positions that folks hold. And so I think another kind of exciting forthcoming thing from this NAAPIMHA network is holding monthly listening circle sessions on specific topics that, bring together folks in the network to center lived experience on top of things that very specifically get at aspects of AANHPI identity and the like. And so really just trying to have that open dialogue and make that space to center lived experience voices at all times. And then if I go through one more slide here on the programs, I mentioned healing through the arts as one of our NAAPI and special interest groups. And so this is something here that we at NAAPIMHA very much like to think about, is that, art is this potentially non-traditional, non-Western way of thinking about healing, but it nonetheless is very important. It can be culturally rooted. It's very much a form of expression. And so we have a saying in NAAPIMHA that like this too is mental health, like art and performance and all of these things, that too is mental health on top of other things that are more clinical at times. And so just want to highlight that, for example, the Asians in Focus initiative was something that we created to recognize that mental health takes many forms. And it was really a space dedicated for the purpose of telling AANHPI stories, as so many of us come from legacies of storytellers and cultures where that's so integral to our health and our spirit. And so really just using the idea of the full range of artistic expression being so important. You have on the left of the slide a couple examples of some photography that was taken during, as part of the Asians Unmasked project, which was really asking folks to use photography to capture that historical moment of COVID-19 that really changed so many folks' lives, that had a huge impact on the AANHPI community and the like. And so that, along with Heart's Hope, which is a Healing Through the Arts project that really focuses on mental health awareness and suicide prevention for AANHPIs, is again really trying to get folks in touch with this conversation around mental health, but knowing sometimes that active dialogue can be hard. So how then are other forms of expression able to really honor that? And so, I think that's something that we keep in mind at NAAPIMHA. And so we'd love for folks, if they'd like to in the chat, to really think about ways in which, they feel that they can get in touch with expression and the arts as a way of healing. Or maybe if you've encountered as well other non-traditional or culturally rooted practices that are other forms of healing. We always love to hear about that because we think that at NAAPIMHA there is such a potential range of things that can speak to healing and mental health and uplifting that. So thank you. And so I think I'm going to be passing it to Crystal again to talk a little bit about policy for us. Thank you.
Great. Thank you, Elizabeth. And as we talk about what we do, again, we'd love for folks to drop in the chat, ways that they are celebrating their mental health and supporting their mental health in other ways, like healing through the arts. And so feel free to drop those in the chat. We'd love to hear those ideas. Next up, we're going to talk about our policy and advocacy initiatives. And I want to preface this by saying, we do many things we listen a lot. And oftentimes when we do our trainings and our programs, we learn so much from the people that we are in community with. And what I have the special honor of doing is then sharing those experiences and really collating those themes when we do talk to our local and national partners that are doing policy and advocacy work. And so one thing that NAAPIMHA does is we really take hold those themes and shares them regularly with SAMHSA as well as our other federal partners. And we keep hold of a lot of the things that are happening on the Hill, whether that is just keeping track of mental health legislation, whether that's tracking the regulations that are coming out around data disaggregation or language access, as well as working with other AANHPI and mental health organizations that are responding to the various bills that impact our communities. And so if you can go to the next slide, I can go ahead and show more specific ones. And I do want to point out Tina mentioning she's been reaching out to Asian community churches to do trauma-informed congregation training. And that's wonderful, right? Just the idea of the ways in which you approach communities, like if they value their faith and they value their church, of course, that's a wonderful space to go to really align with their values and their communities. And so in terms of advocacy efforts, one website I want to point out is our National Advocacy Network. So that's a network of people that are mental health advocates that help us really uplift various legislation, sign-on letters, and and other types of advocacy that we do throughout the year. And so if you want to sign up for alerts, you can go to that website that's on the screen. And then in terms of coalitions, we work with a host of different coalitions across the board because, again, this too is mental health, right? And so we work with the AAPI Against Gun Violence Coalition to really promote gun violence prevention in our communities and across the board. We are a part of various SAMHSA work groups. So proud to say that last year, the first ever Asian American, Native Hawaiian, Pacific Islander Mental Health Summit was hosted in Washington, D.C. by SAMHSA and the White House Initiative on Asian American, Native Hawaiian, and Pacific Islanders. And as a result of that summit, there were 3 main work groups that were created that meet regularly. So we have the fortune of being a part of those 3 work groups, which are the 988 work group, the anti-AANHPI hate work group, as well as the workforce development work group. Another group that we work with closely is NAMI, the National Alliance for Mental Illness, and we specifically sit on the Reimagine Crisis campaign, which is a coalition of organizations that are working to really support the effectiveness of 988 and making sure that our communities are heard when looking to build out 988. And for those that are unfamiliar with 988, it is the Suicide Prevention Lifeline. So it was originally that 10-digit code that people would call when they're experiencing a mental health challenge or crisis, and now it is a 3-digit code, 988. And so we work on the Reimagine Crisis campaign to make sure that we are in the know of the various things that are happening to improve 988 and making sure that our voices are heard when it comes to ways to make 988 more culturally relevant to our communities. And my hope, my dream is to have it be so that 988, when you call, people can be connected to, if they would like, a resource that is specific to Asian American, Native Hawaiian, Pacific Islander communities, and they would have that resource readily available to them. And then finally, we are a part of a organization that is called NAAPIMHA, which is the National Council for Asian Pacific Americans. And so they are a host of 48 national AANHPI serving organizations across the country. And we come together to work on various issues that impact our communities across the board. And the work groups that we're a part of are particularly the health work group, data equity, as we talk about the need for disaggregated data, as well as civic engagement. And we'll talk about the ways in which we are doing civic engagement in our mental health space as well very shortly. And then finally, I would be remiss in not saying that this past Friday, May 10th, it was our 4th annual National Asian American, Native Hawaiian, Pacific Islander Mental Health Day. This was a national resolution that was passed in Congress in 2021, and it stands on the shoulders of the first ever AAPI Mental Health Day that was proclaimed in California and San Francisco back in 2014 by RAMS. And so we work with RAMS and other community partners across the country to celebrate AANHPI Mental Health Day every May 10th. And if you go to our website, napimha.org/AANHPI Mental Health Day, you'll see a host of organizations that are throwing events that are specifically centering AANHPI mental health. So again, it's not just NAAPIMHA. This is a national effort, national movement to really talk about mental health within the context of AANHPI communities. And then if you can go to the next slide, I think I just spoiled it for you all, but again, this is AANHPI Mental Health Day. And really excited that over the years, I've been able to help contribute to the past 2 years. And we've been able to get, we've doubled the number of partners we have that are celebrating with us. So we have 120 partners from across the country. We have new states that are proclaiming AANHPI Mental Health Day. This year, we just got in North Carolina to proclaim the day yesterday, and we're getting a few more in the news of new states that are celebrating. So those in purple are committing to celebrate every year, and those in orange are ones that were submitted and still in progress. But our hope is to color that entire map in the future and to be able to, again, share more and more around AANHPI mental health and find communities that can talk about it in their own specific groups. And that's what's happening as we get more and more community partners. And I think there was a poll, and I want to just pass it to Elizabeth to share that poll.
I think that poll should be up now for folks if you'd like to respond. Yeah, it's asking what percentage do folks think of ANHPIs who meet the criteria for a mental illness do not necessarily receive mental health treatment for that?
All right, so if folks can go into that 3 dots again off to the side to answer the poll, we'll give folks a minute or so, and want to highlight what Alora Ann is sharing. Again, if you have any events that you're doing, feel free to drop it in the chat. So this year, their theme is Wellness Starts Within, Let It Begin, and they're partnering closely with the public school system to have our community events more youth-driven. Events like roadside wavings, radio shows, 5K runs, and family fun days. Wonderful. Okay, how's the poll, Elizabeth?
Yeah, we have folks answering right now, and I'll be closing that momentarily, and then we can share the results.
Okay, and so yes, across the board, more than half said 60% do not receive mental health treatment, and that is correct. So this is from, if you go to SAMHSA's website, they have a national survey on drug use and health, and this is the statistic for the latest data set. And so the statistic is specifically 63% of the estimated 2.8 million Asian American, Native Hawaiian, Pacific Islanders who meet the criteria for a mental health problem do not receive treatment. And again, knowing that we know that AANHPIs have historically had low rates of utilization for mental health services. So again, I think I did this out of order, but this is why AANHPI Mental Health Day, this is why we advocate for resources and just shedding light on the stigma, the importance of having centering things beyond just traditional mental health services, but also culturally defined mental health services that may be relevant to the people in these communities, and just being able to, again, uplift the stories of those with lived experience. And so with that, I think I'm going to pass it off to, I believe this is Elizabeth now, for the next section.
Yeah, thank you, Crystal. So I'll be talking just very briefly about another program that kind of falls under our policy and advocacy work, and that is our Vote for Wellness initiative. So what this is a voter engagement campaign and initiative really aimed at supporting AANHPI communities to get out the vote while centering their mental health and well-being during election season. If you're anything like me, you're very aware that 2024 is an election year. We've just gone through a number of primaries. There'll be some more, I believe, still happening through June, and then there'll be the various party conventions and then general election this fall. And so I think I'll also be the first person to say that if someone asks me, raise your hand if your mental health is impacted by elections, I'll say absolutely me. My hand is up for that. And so I think what this initiative really aims to do and its goals are to increase voter participation, yes, within AANHPI communities, doing so through providing voter education and registration support to give folks who might have mental health challenges or disabilities the right information and to know their rights around that, and for those who are supporting them, potentially their loved ones as well, that information, as well as working to provide voter education specifically through that lens of mental health, to understand that AANHPI voters really, might want to know about candidate positions on things like mental health policy, and the various ways that can be connected to many policy issue areas. As well as just the acknowledgement that, yes, elections do impact our mental health, whether that's through the 24-hour news cycle, whether that's through, current events and how they have that impact, or it is just a constant, sense of maybe political efficacy or being heard politically, making your voice heard through just general civic engagement beyond voting as well, and how to connect to that with communities and advocacy of that like. And so, yes, there is a link on the slide. If you would like to sign up to be a Vote for Wellness initiative ambassador to actively work within AANHPI communities to uplift this idea of really the importance of voting through the lens of wellness and mental health. I just think that that acknowledgement sometimes that mental health is an issue that's on the ballot, each time, and it's also something that the process thereof of civic engagement has that impact on us, particularly for marginalized communities like AANHPIs, is very much present. So yeah, that's what we aim to do with that initiative. And so I think that's my spiel on that. But then I'll be passing to Ariel now to talk about our crisis response and supports.
Thank you, Elizabeth. So we are kind of going into our last of what we do with NAAPIMHA. So we do community crisis supports and response. So basically, if there's a crisis that happens that directly affects AANHPI communities, we will make sure to check in with those local communities and make sure to develop any mental health resources and healing offerings guides, or making sure to attend and facilitate community support spaces. As said before in the beginning by Crystal, we are not a direct service mental health organization, but we can help people to direct people to those mental health organizations that do provide direct services in these times of crises. So we make sure to refer them. We also make sure to hold space for paraprofessionals and community members who are holding space for the communities. So for some examples of efforts that we made sure to help support, we've helped communities affected by the shootings in Monterey Park, Half Moon Bay, in Allen, Texas. We've helped have mental health resources for those affected by the wildfires in Maui. And we also have an ongoing mental health resource and healing offering guides for the ongoing genocide in Palestine, for those who are affected by what is going on currently. And that is pretty much it for the community crisis supports and response. And I will now pass it off to Crystal to kind of just give us a gist of what to expect from the PIMA in the future.
So what's on the horizon? I'm recognizing I want to give some time for us to have any dialogue afterwards. And so going to make sure I go over this pretty quickly. For our trainings, we're going to, as mentioned, increase the amount of trainings that were offered. Thankfully, we have a SAMHSA mental health awareness grant and other funding to be able to do more trainings. And thankfully, within mental health first aid, there have been more in-language trainings that were just released. So, for example, we'll be able to offer Korean, Khmer, and Chinese-speaking mental health first aid curricula offerings in the future. And so that is just something to look forward to. Our community-based programs continue to expand across the country, and we are developing specifically a speakers bureau for our NAAPIMHA group. So again, uplifting the voices of those with lived experience and making sure they are also in spaces where they can share their experiences in spaces like these. And something we didn't do today, but one thing that I love to do as someone that is both a suicide attempt survivor and someone that cares for people with lived experience is often us sharing stories, and that being the way in which we share across our communities. And so really excited to see that NAAPIMHA Speakers Bureau happen. And we will continue to do our policy and advocacy work, as mentioned in previous slides. And again, we'll continue to do our crisis supports and response for across the board for all of the things that we've already mentioned. And so again, I want to make sure there's time for a Q&A. If there are any things you all are doing or want to share with the group, would love to have them in the chat, or you can go ahead and ask your own questions in the Q&A pod on the right side of the screen. And yeah, we can possibly, since this is a slide, we can possibly stop sharing the slides and show everyone on the screen. Wish we could all see you all as well. Sure. So I think Amy has a question of just being able to access the slide deck. Is that something that you could help us with, Suki? Or we can definitely send a version of it as well. Okay. Okay, so it might just be the first link. Okay, we'll definitely get that over to you, Amy. Apologies for that. If there are no questions, I might come up with one, but I'll hold off. I guess a question while we wait for folks in the chat. I feel like I'm going to interview you, Ariel and Elizabeth. Since you all are deeply involved in our various community groups, are there things any insights that or things that you have learned from community members as you've done your work?
I think I can answer this because I've just come off of yesterday evening, actually. So that NAAPIMHA group, the National Asian American Pacific Islander Empowerment Network of folks, I was really lucky to be able to facilitate that conversation with folks. And so I think what I took away from that is just a beautiful kind of space for community, a space for folks to just be able to bring their authentic selves. And I, as someone with, identifying with lived mental health experience as well, find that just so powerful of that sense of community in affinity, and how that really can uplift you, to maybe not be in a space with any particular motivation necessarily to get anything done, but just to have open dialogue is something that I think I've learned with NAAPIMHA and in the community, to just recognize the power of that, and to really just sit with our feelings, and as a collective group of folks who maybe share identity or common experiences. So I think that's something that I think about a lot as just being incredibly powerful, and something that I see as a theme across what NAAPIMHA does, is just bringing folks together in that way. As mentioned at the top of the hour, I'm in a rural part of Washington State is where I'm calling in from. And so having that connection even virtually is just a really powerful thing. Yeah.
Can you repeat the question?
Or any insights that you're learning from the work that you're doing with community members?
Let's see. In terms of learning, I think it's more of reinforcing the thought that community is very important. So something similar to what Elizabeth said, because I was very involved in Filipino organizations throughout undergrad, and so I always knew that community was very important to me, especially when I was in a PWI, and so to continue this community work and organization, it's been it's it's powerful what we can do together, and what we can learn from others.
Awesome. I'm going to go ahead and share Alice's question. So Alice is in Texas. How can we support an AANHPI group? And then also ask the question, how can other groups support AANHPI groups? For one, I think it's, Alice, the question of who's out there, right? Understanding what groups are already in your local communities could be a potential space, and be in community with them, and break bread with them, get to know them in ways that you would get to know any other people and their cultures. There's a statistic that just came out from one of our community partners that 1 in 2 people can't name an Asian American that is living today. And it's just an indicator that many people actually, state Jackie Chan, Bruce Lee, and many people can't even name a living Asian American in today's US society. And so for me, that's often telling of just the invisibility of knowing what Asian American, Native Hawaiian, Pacific Islander groups are and their cultures, but also like people in their local vicinity. And so who are those people that you can actually meet and support in your local areas? And also it starts with also understanding their histories. It isn't, let me double check the time. Oftentimes like Asian American, Native Hawaiian, Pacific Islander history is not taught in our history books. And so when we don't even know much about their histories or even where they've come from, how do we then support their healing from certain things that have harmed them? And so, again, trying to figure out who those people are in your local communities, but also understanding the histories that have brought them here and even their experiences now is incredibly important in order to be allies to them. And now that you know us, one of the things that I enjoy in Filipino culture is this idea of kapwa, which means connectedness in Tagalog. And I like to equate that to like, I am not me without you. And that if I'm connected to you, you are now connected to others that I'm connected with. So would love to chat and connect you with those that are in Texas or whomever, and just even learn with one another. I will note, and not to go too much into this, but it is also not it is not also on that person to hold the burden of like sharing all the things about their identities. So also being mindful of that too. Doing your work to learn as well when supporting others. And that's just in general across the board. And I want to just check with Suki if we still had time for one more question. I know you wanted to close out.
Yes, I think we have time. About 2 minutes.
Okay.
More questions.
Wonderful. And I just want to uplift. Melody. Perhaps we can connect you to our NAAPIMHA network as you are writing your peer cultural specific framework section. That I think they would have a lot of different insights. Our NAAPIMHA steering committee, as people that are both people with lived experience, but also some of them are peer support specialists. And then Casey says, NHPIs often feel overshadowed in AANHPI efforts. As there are far more resources available for Asian American groups specifically, are there resources you would recommend for organizations wanting to focus on learning and representing NHPI groups? Love that question. Elizabeth or Ariel, okay, if I take this one. I often, as someone that doesn't identify as NH or PI, I often am a big fan of one of our sibling organizations, EPIC, Empowering Pacific Islander Communities, as well as some other organizations within our community partners that are throughout the country that we often learn from, unlearn from, often center to make sure that we are not only as a group that has predominantly, as you mentioned, Asian Americans, making sure that we are being inclusive of the experiences of Native Hawaiians and Pacific Islanders as well. So yes, EPIC, Utopia Washington in Washington, and then various groups in the Bay Area too. I can think of that have like Pacific Islander wellness groups. So again, happy to share more. If we can just share our emails in the chat, you all, maybe we can just connect with others afterwards. And I'll pass it off to Suki. Thank you so much, everyone.
Thank you all so much for spending the last hour with us. I learned so much, and I hope you did too. Please access the resources. There are links to the PDF of the slides under the resources icon. And yes, please, speakers, Ariel, Crystal, and Elizabeth, thank you so much for sharing your expertise and your time with us. Please it's very generous to offer to put your emails or the links to your website that has your contact information in the chat so folks can connect with you directly. I love what you said about that feeling of connectedness, and that's so important to all of us, and is very health promoting when we're connected to other people. So yes, so very excited to continue on our day. A couple of notes is please do complete the Day 2 Summit evaluation. At the end of the day, you'll be able to provide direct feedback about the presentation today, which we will share with the speakers. And then at NTAC, we also use your voice to help us improve for next year and also for all future sessions throughout the year. So your voice really does matter on that. We read every single word that you all write and take that into consideration. And so Where we are headed to next is we've got another break. So please stretch your legs, check out the lightning talks, check out the wellness room. And at 2 p.m. Eastern, just kidding, in another 30 minutes, we will be starting with another keynote, and Lynn's Amer will illuminate the intersection of early childhood education and gender identity. Drawing from their book, Rainbow Parenting, Lynn's will share insights on fostering affirming environments for LGBTQ plus youth, highlighting the life-saving impact of acceptance. So I hope you all will stick around for that. And you can join that session when you get the prompt on the main screen to join the live session. So please check out our conference program and all the booths at the top that you can see in the event bar. So thank you all so much. Please throw some, if you're still with us, please throw some hearts and applause in the chat and emojis coming out. This was such a great presentation, and it was beautiful too, by the way. I loved all the graphics. So so many people, look at all those applause. Yes, thank you so much. And we'll look forward to staying connected with all of you and see you all in the next session.
Thank you, everyone.